stakeholder.
In gambling, an independent party with whom each of those who make a wager deposits the money or counters wager.
A person with an interest or concern in something, especially a business.
In emergency management, any person or entity with a vested interest in the survival and recovery of a given community. You.
Welcome to Stakeholder Prepping.
Welcome back to Stakeholder Prepping, where we bring the tactical from the practical and help you become your own stakeholder in your survival. We are your ad hoc S2 shop hosts. I am Chris.
And I'm AC.
And before we really kick off this episode, AC, I feel this is a great episode and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. But I do want to touch on something from our last episode. So last time we talked about the Waffle House Index, and it's one of those lesser known things. I hope you had fun listening to us throughout that entire episode, but I want to kind of clear the air on our recording status. So we record these episodes sometimes weeks in advance and then schedule them for the release on Sundays, mostly because we need to guarantee internet quality and audio capacity in some of the places that AC goes to on the road. Last week's episode was actually recorded before Hurricane Helene, before any of the Waffle House restaurants in the South closed or went to limited menus or no online ordering. And with how Helene impacted the Southeast United States, I just want to make sure that we are upfront. That is an absolutely horrible event. I feel like it's going to be a case study on par with Katrina in the future of emergency management fields. But to anyone who is still suffering from those horrific events, we're here to help. If you need help, we can try to coordinate. You know, we've got some friends in the area. We've got some friends around the country that can send supplies. Let us know and we will do what we can. We can't promise much, but AC, I feel like you're on the same page with me. That was beyond disastrous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was, we obviously didn't plan that. We didn't know it was coming. But I don't think we would have adjusted that episode really at all. I mean, right? I don't think you would have changed anything. It almost kind of played out almost exactly like you said. It was really, really bad. And in that case, a lot of those Waffle Houses closed early, which really surprised me. I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be bad, just like Chris said, because there's restaurants closing before the thing made landfall. And that's exactly how that shit went down.
Exactly. And maybe I am a fortune teller.
I don't know. It was very Nostradamus of you, I'm telling you. It was.
So here we are.
Mm-hmm.
What is today's episode, AC?
Okay, so yeah, here we are. This is the EDC Through TSA episode, and we talked a little bit about this last week. And yeah, to go back to the audio, we did have some audio issues last week. I hope this one does sound better because we're both back in the studio. But last week, I remember specifically, you know, I found some free time and I had my outline, and Chris and I were talking before we went live, and he said, you know, I don't know how good this is going to sound. I see a concrete ceiling behind you. Like, I wasn't in a bunker, but it sure did look like that. So I'm sure the audio reflected that, and hopefully it wasn't intolerable for everybody. So, as we talked about in the past, you know, I am a bit of a road warrior. I'm generally traveling more often than not. I've flown about 3 million miles in my career through somewhere around 50 countries. So maybe about a little over 25% of the countries on planet Earth. And we thought it would be very cool just to talk about the EDC gear that comes with me when I'm running around the planet, in and out of friendly and unfriendly places. For this exercise, we're simply talking about the gear I carry through TSA or some other, like a security access point. We're not going to discuss what goes in my check bag, only what I take with me on my person and my bag through security. And this way, the info we present today isn't just useful for people who travel via air, but this is actionable intelligence for anyone who goes through security, like maybe a courthouse or a train station, or I don't know, Chris, help me out. Like,
Yeah, off the top of my head, any sort of secured access location, like if you're visiting a friend on a military base, or
Mhm.
maybe you have business, you're delivering pizzas on a base, or federal post office. That's a federally secured area.
Sure.
School, college campus. There are some churches. There are all kinds of places where security measures are in place. They are hardened measures, and you have to be checked before you're allowed access.
Right. So really anywhere with a metal detector or one of those millimeter backscatter detectors, or even just a pat down. So maybe even somewhere like the ball game, I would say that this information is pertinent and actionable.
I completely agree. I've been patted down to go into a concert, so
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah, concert's a great example too. Sure. And this is scalable information. So I'm not saying everyone needs to, have a NIJ level 3A insert in their backpack every single place they go. But I'm going to give you the entire loadout, and you can kind of pick and choose what EDC gear works for you in your situation. And I think we want to present this info in such a way that it isn't just valuable to people that travel via air.
I completely agree. But AC, I got to stop you because we're going into the acronymese and the jargon.
I didn't even notice. What did I say?
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's go through EDC, NIJ, and loadout.
Okay. You take that then.
Off the top, TSA, Transportation Security Administration, those are the guys at the airports checking your passport, checking your stuff, making sure you're not bringing anything on board. I would say we kind of give that as a given. But let's go through some of the other ones. So EDC, everyday carry. Those are the items on your person at all times when you are outside of the house. For a lot of people, that is phone, wallet, keys, glasses if you wear them. That's it. Not a lot else. If you look through my wife's purse, it is phone, wallet, keys, glasses spray, pocket knife. It goes
snacks.
on and on and on and on and on. The dog flicker, the dog snacks. It's a compound list. But EDC is anything that you're going to carry outside of the house every day you're gone. For some people, that it also includes a firearm, an extra magazine, a tactical tourniquet, first aid kit. This is another term, loadout. This is what you are carrying on you. And loadout is your simplified term for anything that you immediately have access to. So what's in your backpack? You maybe don't carry it every day, but when you travel, you do. That's going to be your loadout. The other one that I want to touch on that AC you mentioned is NIJ. So NIJ is the National Institute of Justice, and it is a certification level for body armor ratings. NIJ has 5 basic ratings. They've got 2, 2A, 3, 3A, and 4. The level 2 and level 2A, those are kind of the outdated soft body armor panels that you saw in like the 1980s cop movies, or the flak jackets that were used in Vietnam. Those are very outdated for modern day purposes, so we won't touch too much on those. Let's do 3A, 3, and 4.
Okay.
So NIJ level 3A, it will stop the vast majority of handgun bullets. So it's rated to stop a 357 SIG full metal jacket traveling at 1,470 feet per second. That's fast.
That's fast. And I guess that's why you're saying this is this is an NIJ spec. That's why it's called NIJ, right? It's like tested to the spec that the National Institute of Justice goes through, right?
Exactly. If it can stop this round, another test for it is a 44 Magnum soft jacketed hollow point round at 1,430 feet per second. It's a lot heavier round, moving a little bit slower, but if it can pass these tests, basically it's bulletproof to handgun rounds. When you step into level 3, which 3A is lower than level 3, it will stop 6 hits of 7.62 by 51 NATO. It's also in the U.S. It's called M80 ball ammo. For those of you who are not familiar with NATO rounds, that's going to be your Remington rifle that shoots a 308.
It's a 308, right? That's what I thought. Okay.
It's 308 Winchester. It can stop 6 hits spaced out, so not one on top of the next on top of the next. But level 3 plates can stop 6 bullets. That's pretty huge if you're ever in that position where you have to use it. And then we get into our level 4, and level 4 is that highest rated ballistic protection. Those are going to be the ones that they can take a single hit from the gold standard of the NIJ, which is the armor piercing 30-06. That's the same round that we used in World War II in the M1 Garand rifle. That's the world conquering Nazi beater. It is still our gold standard. If it can survive an armor piercing 30-06 round, it is level 4 rated by the NIJ. Those are the plates that you see in modern day armor for soldiers. Those are the heavy plates. They're about an inch and a half thick, depending on the make and manufacturer. A lot of time those are ceramic, and they're not lightweight. They're 12 to 14 pounds.
Right. So that's not something you're going to find in like a backpack insert, or probably even like a normal concealable bulletproof vest, right?
Not unless you're training from ultramarathon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's all fair. And the reason we went into that, obviously, for anybody listening, is because I do carry a plate, and we'll talk about that. And I also have a concealable bulletproof vest that is it's a level 3. I guess you said that's a 3A because that's not as good as 3. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I've got one of those that I've taken to some unpleasant places, and you can't really tell I'm wearing it like under a hoodie. You wouldn't know. So that's okay. That's fair. I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks for checking me on that. I'm doing that thing where maybe I'm not speaking to the entire audience, but I appreciate you keeping me grounded. So while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and define gray man and that gray man concept before I get into that too?
Ooh, this one's a fun one. So gray man, obviously there's the Netflix movie, The Gray Man.
Right. Is that where it came from? Is that where like the term that the pop culturally term gray man came from? Was it from that, or was it before that?
It came well before the movie came out.
Okay. All right.
But the survivalist concept of a gray man is someone who appears ordinary and blends in with the crowd, but they're actually very well prepared for an emergency. It's based on the idea that it can be advantageous to go unnoticed in a crisis situation.
Mm-hmm.
So gray man concept is really important to understand because it's just as scalable and adaptable as other aspects of prepping. For example, blending into your surroundings, whether you are a highly paid international assassin like in the movie, or if you are just trying to get away from a riotous crowd, blending in is going to be critical. So if you're wearing baggy clothing, it's not exactly going to be the best choice, especially if you're in something like a high-density professional environment. Walking through Wall Street in your Jinkos from the 90s, you're going to stand out. On the opposite side of that same coin, though, business slacks and a polo, they're going to look out of place if you're in the woods or in a junkyard or, any place like that. So you have to blend into your environment. And a lot of people don't realize that blending into your environment also means adapting your personality. Was it Boy George that wrote the song Karma Chameleon?
It was Boy George. I'm not going to sing it for you, but it was. That was a hit.
Karma. Yeah, that was Boy George.
That's it.
But you have to adapt your personality. So a true gray person, man or woman, can pass in any environment, even if it's completely new and unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And a really good example of this, AC, did you ever watch the TV series The Last Ship?
The USS Nathan James? No, I'm not familiar.
Fun fact, the USS Nathan James is not the real name of that ship. The real name of the ship that they used for filming is the USS Halsey, what was the name of the dog used by Lieutenant Green?
Yeah, it was the Halsey. So that was a throwback to the ship they were actually on. Halsey, huh?
Admiral Halsey, exactly.
Every day is a school day.
But for those of you who don't know or have never seen the series, there's a character in that series that goes by the name of Tex. And I won't give you too many spoilers, but there's a particular scene where he blends into a group of enemy combatants using his knowledge of a specific geographic area that he picked up from a previous relationship. So he was dating a woman who was from a specific area, and he says, I'm from here, and they believe him because he sells.
Got it. So it's not just the outfit. It's the personality. There is a mental or an emotional gray man as well.
Attitude is everything, and you can always use your personal experience as kind of a baseline to understand what you can and cannot pass with.
I like it. Okay, so we've got most of those definitions out of the way. I really like that. And for me, the gray man, it's more about the outfit than the gear, right? You got to keep the outfit gray, and I'm using quotation fingers there. So even for me, honestly, it's even down to the shoes. And this is something that only someone who travels a ton can relate to, and maybe even those people haven't noticed like I have, but there's value for everybody in this. I do not travel in leather shoes. Now, obviously, if I've got to pack a suit and tie somewhere, I'm going to an event like that, I will pack nice shoes with me. But I don't wear leather shoes when I'm traveling. And whether you're in an airport or a train station or a subway station or walking around New York City, the reason is the shoe shine people contact you. And I'm not kidding. Try this out. Watch, when you travel, anytime you see a shoe shiner who isn't shining shoes, they're looking down at everybody's feet. And when they see someone in leather shoes, they're going to look at them, they're going to talk to them, they're going to make eye contact, they'll call you out. So if you want to keep an entire subset of the population from noticing you, this is a very easy gray man hack.
That makes total sense.
It's wild. And I'm not saying there's shoe shiners everywhere, but shoe shiners, I mean, you watch any cop show, where do the Law and Order Special Victims Unit people go? Who do they ask at the train station? They ask the effing shoe shiner because he's been there every single day and he's looking at people. So I know that's maybe that seems like a little alarmist or something, but if you aren't wearing leather shoes, then this whole subset of the population who is in the place you're traveling will never know you were there.
Yeah, and it's not like you're trying to evade the kid from the movie Mimic, where
I'm not. No.
He's saying funny shoes, funny shoes.
Right.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. So that's a quick, easy gray man hack for everybody. And I'm usually a street hiker, shoe kind of guy. I used to wear running shoes and kind of tight fitting cross trainers because it's easier to run when you're about to miss a flight in them. But the other thing I noticed about those when I was wearing the running shoes, the tight fitting shoes, the more athletic shoes, is that as soon as you sit down the airplane, you want to take those things off. And I read a book a while back called The Survivors Club. It's by Ben Sherwood. Great book. We could do an entire episode on that book. But one of the chapters, he talks about air disasters. And there's this rule called the +3 -8 rule. And it says, I forget if it's like 80 or 90% of all airplane crashes happen in these 11 minutes, in the first 3 minutes after takeoff or the final 8 minutes of the flight. So
Interesting.
Stay alert. Don't take your shoes off and don't put your headphones on. Don't zone out for those 11 minutes. And beyond that, almost all of the fatalities from what they call survivable air crashes are smoke inhalation and fire due to the inability to escape the airplane. So if you think about it, having shoes that are comfortable enough that you can move around and you can run in them, maybe they're not the best, but they're comfortable enough that you never want to take them off, then you're going to keep those on and you're going to be able to escape situations like that. If you have your shoes off and the floor is all of a sudden lava, like when you're a kid jumping on the bed, you are going to die. So I'm more of a Keen or a Merrill kind of guy, really.
So I like that because I've always been a Merrill guy since I found them. They fit my feet extremely well. And for some reason, I put all of my shoes through this rampant punishment.
Sure.
And finding size 13 shoes that fit well is difficult for me. So I have always been very pleased with how they feel and how they hold up to the torture that I put them in. I will say that one rule I've always lived by is, regardless of whether they're leather or hikers or cross trainers or whatever, always wear closed-toed shoes when you're flying. One, it's gross if you're on that airplane floor in bare feet. Two, losing a flip-flop between that gap in between the plane and the ramp when you're boarding, that would be bad enough. But can you imagine having to do an emergency exit onto that slide onto a hot tarmac in chanclas? No, thank you.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's a great point. That having not just the tight-fitting shoes, but you're right. Like the not wearing slides or open-toed shoes or something like that you can't move in at all, although they're going to be comfortable. That's something very, very simple that can save your life. You always see the people getting back on the plane coming from Cancun or Jamaica, right? And they're all wearing flip-flops and they're sunburned. And if something happens where they need to egress the airplane quickly, they are not going to be able to do that. And we could do a whole episode on all of the kind of airplane hacks like that, just the escaping the airplane, all those kinds of things. But we're going to run out of time, I can tell already on this episode. So the only other part of the outfit that I'm particular on really is the pants. And one of the reasons I like to keep my wallet and my passport on my person, but my chiropractor and the pickpockets say that it is bad for you to put your wallet in your back pocket. I'm sure you've heard that, Chris, right? They're always looking for the back right.
Yep. Look at the back right. If it's bulging, it's a target. Yep.
That's right. And so it's not particularly sound. It's not tactically sound. So I usually wear cargos or jeans with kind of more pockets. I really like, I don't know if you've heard of, do you know the brand Victos? It's Viktos.
No, I haven't heard of it.
And they're kind of cool. I mean, they're kind of 511-y. They're a tactical clothing line, but they have some jeans that have these slash pockets in front, like below your normal, pants pockets. And they are specifically made, I think, for like M4 mags. But they work great to keep your wallet and your passport close. And the other thing I like about them is there's this tiny secret pocket right in the back, right in the absolute back middle of the waistband. And a buddy of mine who's worked undercover with the FBI said he wears these or similar pants and has a couple of escape tools back there. So if you're worried about getting kidnapped, again, I don't want to be totally alarmist, but I'm telling you, these are things I do because I wear my seatbelt too, and I don't think I'm going to get in a car accident, but these are just simple, pragmatic things you can do. So one of the companies, Shomer Tech, is a great company, and we'll leave, obviously, like we always do on the blog, links to all this stuff we talked about. But Shomer Tech makes these little awesome escape tools like a little plastic handcuff key and a ceramic razor blade that don't show up in metal detectors or the millimeter wave scanners. So if you needed to escape either handcuffs or like zip ties, you could do it with these kinds of tools that are non-ferrous. They wouldn't show up. And along that line, I think we should probably talk about that because, Chris, I know you've done some training where they put you in handcuffs and you got to get out of them or, do whatever. But I think I would say that just having the tools does not necessarily mean that you're going to escape free and clear, right? Like that's something that takes training. Try to cuff yourself behind your back and I could hand you a handcuff key, or zip tie yourself behind your back and I could hand you a razor blade. You're not necessarily guaranteed to get out of those as a novice, right?
No, not in the slightest. And you're right. We've talked about this offline. I have done some training, and yes, it was training.
You weren't
I'm
locked up.
glad I didn't have to embarrass somebody in the real world like this. I have done training where I was being escorted out of a secure area in handcuffs, and I was pretending to be belligerently drunk. And they were escorting me out, and I kind of used my, again, gray man attitude, but I was able to disarm an officer while I was still in handcuffs behind my back. And because of my actions, I was so, quote unquote, sloppy that they were trying to hold me up to escort me and didn't feel me disarm him out of a level 3 retention holster. That takes a
Interesting.
lot, but
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with holsters. I don't
Mhm.
know that off the bat, if you hand me a handcuff key even in front of me,
Right.
that takes a lot of flexibility and a lot of
It
dexterity. It takes
it
practice.
does. It takes practice. So don't just buy the stuff. Do the practicing part too. And if you're a cargo pant guy along the pants or the pants party, along the pants situation here, if you're a cargo pant guy, go with the Velcro pockets over the snaps, because metal detectors will set off the metal snaps every time. The metal snap, both of the machines, in fact, the metal detector and the millimeter wave backscatter. You have enough snaps, it will eventually set it off. And there's
Guilty,
a company that
guilty.
right, yeah, exactly. And by the way, I guess it depends on what the mission is, right? Because obviously snaps are quieter than Velcro, so it kind of depends on what you're going for. But if you're an EDC travel kind of person, I would go Velcro over snaps. And there is a company that advertises, they call them, I'm using quotation figures again, the best pants in the world. And I'm not going to name them, but I think their slogan is something like the James Bond of travel pants in their ads. And you might have seen them in like a travel magazine or website. I bought some of these. They're very expensive. They're not cheap at all. And they say they're like anti-pickpocket, they're travel friendly. What they don't tell you is that with all these stupid snaps and zippers, they will set off every single security scanner, and you will be getting secondary screening and anal cavity searches in 25 different languages. So you don't need to buy the expensive pants, any old cargos that you're comfortable with. That if you're not like a Victos jean guy, cargo pants, and you can find cargo pants that have that little that have the little secret pocket in the back where your hands would be. Now
like
I'm
it.
going to apologize now in advance for the product heavy stuff. But I have literally field tested all of this stuff we're going to talk about, in some cases for decades. So I trust my life, my person, my property to all of these brands. But before I go any further, Chris, can you remind me and remind everybody, how many brands are we sponsored by in any way, shape, or form?
Let me look it up. Let's see. It's somewhere exactly 0. So maybe we can work something out with those who are listening. Hint, hint.
So exactly. So actually, I can't think of one that I do have a relationship with, and I'll reveal that when we get there. Last thing, outfit wise, I know I said that with the pants, but before just probably more for the guys. I travel wearing the Bison Designs belt, and not like the belt has a buffalo on it, but the company is called Bison Designs, and these guys have it's a super small belt. I want to say I think it's 30 millimeter, and it's made out of like climber's webbing with a titanium buckle. And this never gets me stopped through TSA. I have never been stopped in the millimeter wave backscatter machine, and I bet maybe 1 out of every 20 times it might set the metal detector off, but I think it's because that titanium buckle, that material is either less dense or whatever it is, but it just doesn't go off. So I don't ever take my belt off. Even when they say, take your belt off, I don't do it, and I breeze right through every time. So the other thing I like about these guys is it is a rescue rated belt. So it's actual climber's webbing, and that titanium buckle has like a little hook on it. So you could actually like be hoisted with this thing, like hoisted into a helicopter.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so not the kind of thing you're wearing with the shirt tucked in. It's kind of more tactically looking, but they are a climbing rated type belt. And obviously, if you've ever tried to hoist yourself with your belt, you're not going to be a great date after that, but it may save your life. So, now, the after we get past the outfit part, right? The next most important, maybe single most important piece of travel gear is the bag. And I have owned a ton, like a ton. And I would say in no uncertain terms, there are all of the rest, and then there's Maxpedition. These guys just truly make the best backpacks, sling bags, all kinds of stuff, duffels. They make the best ones on planet Earth. And I've never managed to break one, like not even a zipper. I've actually just swapped them out sometimes because I wanted a new bag because they look cool, but not because they ever got worn out. I'm not kidding. I cannot wear them out. I usually use they've got one called their Riff Core, which is It's like a 23 liter, so a smaller backpack fits under the seat in front of you type thing. But it holds enough of my gear, and it has it doesn't have like the big molly webbing, but it does look a little tactical. They have some very, very tactical backpacks, and then they have some very gray man backpacks. But they're built to the same tactical standards. I think it's NTOA, National Tactical Officers Association. They're all NTOA certified. Obviously, we'll post links, but I'm telling you, I have used them all, and I'm not going to talk bad about any of them. But I've worn them all out, and I have yet to break a Maxpedition bag.
Interesting.
And so next we'll go into like, the what's in the bag, like I'm referencing the 7 with Brad Pitt, like what's in the box, what's in the bag. So we'll start with I'll start big and we'll get a little more granular, but I'm not going to go all the way down into like, hey, what toothbrush do you carry? I'm going to keep this like the big stuff. So we mentioned NIJ. I have an NIJ level 3 insert. The company that makes them is called Hardwire. I do have a relationship with that company. I wouldn't say I'm like sponsored, but I've gotten quite a bit of free stuff from them, and I know the owner really well. They've done some cool stuff for me. But I would say that you wouldn't know you have it. It's just super, super lightweight. Chris, I think I sent you one of these, right? One of their their level 3s.
Yeah, you sent me a 10-inch by 13-inch backpack insert, and it is incredibly thin for the rating that it has. It's only what, a quarter inch, and it's
something
super
like that.
light.
Yeah.
I was
Super
surprised.
lightweight.
It's less than a pound for sure.
And something they do, I think that's really cool, is it's just a sticker on it that you can remove that says, what rating it is. They do a level 3 and a 3A, but I think they're about $139. But something that a lot of people probably don't know is there are a lot of countries on planet Earth where ballistic stuff is against the law. Bulletproof things are illegal in country. So this, if you peel the sticker off, there's no way to know that this thing is ballistic. It's not like a soft panel. It doesn't look ballistic. It doesn't say it. And so it just looks like a clipboard, really. And so that's something I really like about these guys, that if I travel all around the world, I've been to plenty of places, disclaimer, maybe I've been to plenty of places where ballistic stuff might be illegal. I've never been stopped. No one's ever noticed. It doesn't look like anything on a metal detector. So I really like those guys. The other thing is I always carry, obviously, and most people do, I always carry a USB power bank. I like the ones that have the little flashlight on it, so you're not wearing out your cell phone if you need a flashlight. And I like the ones that have a little solar panel, so if you can't charge them, they can charge themselves. I usually get one that's got 2 USB outlets on them. There's a ton on Amazon. This is kind of like a $30 Amazon item, but they're invaluable when you need to charge your phone. And for OPSEC, never plug your phone into a USB port anywhere, and never borrow a USB cable from anybody. Chris, you're the comms guy. Tell me things.
I cannot reiterate that enough. So for operational security, OPSEC, USB cables and drives, technology has gotten so ridiculously advanced on this. They can contain hidden chips in them that you plug in a USB cable or a drive, a thumb drive, and it will have a keylogger or malware, or if it's a cable, they can even build in transmission antennas that relay information on the device that's plugged into it to a remote destination. So all it takes is plugging your phone into a hostile USB, even if it's the USB port at the airport.
That's exactly right.
Of people pulling those plates off, putting in a keylogger and transmitter into that USB port, and then putting the cover back over. And as soon as you plug into it, that anti-security package, it can access pictures, emails, passwords, stored banking or card information. Basically, they have access to your entire phone. So nothing stays safe on its own. And it really is truly up to you to protect yourself and understand your surroundings. So I 100% am on the same page. Bring your own USB jump pack, because it's not just going to give you reliable power wherever you take it, but it oftentimes is going to be more secure than plugging your phone into that airport USB
sure.
jack, and it can make it through TSA security. So wherever you are, you've got power.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I was in Beijing once. It was a State Department contract we were working on, and one of the guys I was there with made a huge point about, in these Chinese hotel rooms, they like you said, they just have the USB, so you don't have to use your little wall wart. Absolutely do not plug your phone directly into that USB, because the chances of one of these Chinese hotel rooms having some kind of malware built into those plugs, there wasn't a super bad chance of that happening.
But
So
it could. And
it could.
there is a kind of a workaround for it. What you can do is, if you bring the charging cable for your USB pack, for your jump pack, and your USB connector to your phone, you can plug the jump pack into that USB to charge, and then run your phone into the jump pack, because the jump pack doesn't have any data on it. It's just power. So you can use that as a pass-through for the power, and the USB or the battery pack will charge while it's charging your phone. But
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Never direct into the outlet.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, obviously using the little 120, 110 AC wall wart or something, or yeah, like you said, kind of daisy chaining that, because the USB cable itself, it's got however many wires in there. Some of them are data, some of them are power, but the jump pack only uses the power one. So that's actually a really good point. Other stuff I do carry some emergency comms with me, and I'm not saying everybody's got to carry like a sat phone with them, but I do have both a PLB and a little Garmin InReach communicator. So PLB it's personal locator beacon, and there's a reason to have each, and there's good things about some and good things about others. The Garmin, I guess, is arguably better, but it's got a subscription fee. It's about, I think the minimum subscription about $12 a month, and you can get a handful of text messages out of that. Garmin just came out with a new InReach I haven't messed with yet, that apparently does like voice messages and text and pictures, but this is a satellite communicator. So if you don't have any cell service anywhere, it's kind of like a little thing you can text with. It almost looks like the more expensive ones kind of look like a BlackBerry, like they have like a little keyboard on them. But the differences between a PLB and an InReach, basically, a PLB is simply a locator beacon. It's registered to you. They're, I don't know, $150, and there's no subscription. They last forever. I think every 5 years you got to replace the battery in them, which is not very expensive, but they're kind of cool. This goes up to, it sends, if you pull this thing, if you pull the little emergency cable on it, it's you just need a clear view of the sky. You can't be underground somewhere, but if you can see the sky, this sends a distress signal on this internationally recognized, it's 406 megahertz, which is the satellite the satellite frequency, and it has your unique 15-digit identification code. So that's linked to you somewhere in a database. So that goes up to the satellite, and once you get passed by, it's called the SARSAT satellite system, so search and rescue satellite. Once a SARSAT pass happens, it basically relays that back to a local user terminal on the ground, and then the local user terminal kind of figures out where you are and sends that to the MCC, which is a mission control center. And this is crazy. Like, every single country on planet Earth has an MCC. There is an agency registered in every country with SARSAT. So like even the Vatican City, there's some dude that's probably pretty pappily, but he is registered with SARSAT, and they then would coordinate a search and rescue mission. So in the US, it's NOAA that does that. When you pop the SARSAT, it comes back down to NOAA. Then NOAA decides kind of where you are, and they say, oh, hey, look, this person that we're looking for is on the coast, so call the Coast Guard, or they're inland, call the National Guard, or call a local agency that does SAR in that region.
That's how wild.
It's really crazy. Every single country in the world has some MCC registered with SARSAT that will go find you. The difference with the little satellite communicators that have the monthly subscription, it's not just an emergency. You could just text people with it. It links to your phone, and anywhere you want to text someone, like I said, it's like $12 a month, and you can text someone over the satellite. So if you don't have cell service. Now, the issue with that is it does have an emergency button, and that emergency should, and I'm using quotation fingers, should do the same thing as a PLB, but it has to go to like the company you bought it from, like Garmin first. So let's say you didn't pay your bill, or they didn't think you paid your bill. You push that button, it goes to Garmin, then someone decides whether or not to pass that information along to SARSAT. So I've never talked to Garmin about this. I'm not saying they wouldn't do it, but just for the peace of mind, that's why I have both. I have a PLB that I know is going to affect a rescue, and I have a little SOS communicator that I can just send people my location anywhere on the planet. Push button sends your location to anybody that's in your email distribution list or your friends list. I can text them if I need to. So if I needed rescue, but I didn't want the Coast Guard involved, and I just wanted to call Chris, I could do that with one of these little Garmin SOS communicators. So
see, that's kind of cool. And I didn't realize that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration responds to search and rescue efforts.
They are our local mission control center, are the U.S. based MCC for the SARSAT satellite system is NOAA. And I'm surprised you didn't bump into that more in your satellite comms life, but I guess that is just strictly for search and rescue, that 406 megahertz, right?
Yeah, and we had a spectrum analyzer that was tuned to 406, and every once in a while it would kind of chirp at us for 30 seconds or so, but we never really, or I guess I never really understood what it was doing. So maybe somebody was actually in trouble, and we were seeing their beacon pulse.
Yep.
And then it got shut off, and they got found. So I don't know.
Right. That could have simply been that 15-digit identifier going up to the satellite and back down that you guys were hearing. But yeah, so that's how that SARSAT thing works. Along the Garmin lines, and again, I don't have any relationship with Garmin, but I do have quite a few of their products. I wear a Garmin watch, and it's a smartwatch, and I know there's a lot of different smartwatches out there. Being an aviator, I have one of their higher end aviation watches that has basically every airport in the world. It has on a little database in there. You don't need cell coverage like you would on like a Apple Watch. It's all built in there, and there's a GPS antenna in there. And so, in an extreme circumstance, not saying I would ever do this, but in an extreme circumstance, if I needed to take an airplane, I could get home because I could just punch in the Garmin watch, take me to my airport, and it provides you with an HSI, which is a horizontal situation indicator. It gives you, time, speed, distance, bearing to whatever point you put in. But all the Garmin watches, including, the high-end ones, the Tactics, and I think Phoenix is their higher-end one, and obviously the aviation ones, they all have a very high-end base map, like a topography base map with pretty much every street in the world on this little base map that you can load onto the watch, depending on how much information you want to shove on there. But you can never be lost if you have one of these watches, is what I'm saying. If you put the base map on there, you will always know exactly where you are, whether you have a phone, whether you have cell coverage, whether you're in a absolute cataclysmic emergency. That watch, as long as it can see the satellites, it will tell you where you are, and it will provide a map. So I really do like theirs, and it can be very gray man because you can change the watch face, so it doesn't have to have like a tactical look. You can put picture your dog on the watch face. So I really do like the Garmin watches compared to the other kind of smart watches out there.
So as long as you've got a clear view of the sky and you remember to charge the battery,
and just take that make sure you always pack your USB cable and have your solar powered power bank for $30. And yeah, you can always get home. That's an excellent point, Chris. So along the foodstuffs, like I always pack, like I'll throw a protein bar, jerky in there or whatever. But there's one to check out. I like the they're called Solus rations. I think Daytrex makes them, but they're like the Coast Guard survival rations. Like any emergency lifeboat has these things in there, and it is just a little brick. It's probably it's just maybe 3 or 4 times bigger than a cell phone, and it's like 3,600 calories, and they're soulless, which is survival of life at sea. They're soulless rated, which means they don't induce thirst, and they don't taste that great. I think they're mostly like coconut oil, like they're really heavy calorie for very small. But if you think about it, I mean, 3,600 calories in this little tiny brick that just goes in your backpack. It has like a 5-year shelf life. You'd never notice you don't have, or you never notice you had it, and when you need it, it's there, and you could ration that out. So I've actually, I admit, I have broken them open. I've been in a foreign country before where the hotel I was staying at didn't have a hotel restaurant. And I was like, I just need to eat. I'm not going to venture out on the street. They kept me alive. I was a little cranky in the morning, but that was okay. I do also take an expandable straw. These can get through anywhere. Basically because like a real straw is more illegal than like crack and meth in most places. but also, if you don't have a straw, it's a nice thing to have, and it can be used as a fire bellows. So if you ever do need to start a fire, one of these little expandable metal straws, very cool. I pack a plastic fork combo thing. Light My Fire is an REI type brand that has great little plastic. You can get them through TSA, and if you ever are in need, I mean, I've just been in a lot of places where I just maybe I ordered food or I brought it back to my room and I realized that I didn't have a eating utensil. It's invaluable. They're very inexpensive. You don't notice you have them.
See, we have several of those, and we take them camping. We take them on vacation sometimes, regardless. But they're actually in our vehicle emergency kits. There's a company called, I'm going to mispronounce this, but UCO, UCO. They make really high density, surprisingly strong, dual-ended sporks with a little cutting edge on it. And we actually just use them around the house.
Sure. Is that something that could look like it could get through TSA? Like the cutting edge isn't something they would misconstrue as a weapon?
It's one of the fork tines. Yeah, it's less than an inch long, and it's just plastic. It's not a great knife. They do make a knife version, but yeah, we've never had a problem getting through TSA, and they are incredibly difficult to break.
It's always good to have, even if I've been in questionable places where you go out to like fast food and you're looking at just all the plastic silverware laid out somewhere, and I'm like, I would rather not use theirs. So
exactly,
it's a super easy thing to have that a lot of people don't think about. I also pack a life straw. I'm sure you have some of these, Chris, but it's just a water filter in a straw, so it's super tiny. It filters all the nasty stuff out of the water, and they have a bottle adapter, so you can take a used old bottled water, fill it up with river water or something, and drink it through the straw. But I do carry a life straw with me, and I carry a life straw with me not just because I think I'm going to drink out of a stream somewhere, but even somewhere where you just question where their bottled water might come from.
Yep. We've got several life straws. We also have some Sawyer minis.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
That's another brand. And I think the Sawyer minis are rated for like 100,000 gallons, which at a gallon of water per day per person, that's probably longer than I'm going to live. So
yeah. So So always, exactly. Have a water filter. And then one other thing along the water route, I always carry like a liquid IV powder or I really like Elements. There's a couple of different brands. It depends if you want the sugar-free. I don't really like the stevia stuff, so I like the ones that are just basically the only ingredients are like sodium, magnesium, potassium. But there's some reasons for that. A lot of places you go in the world, and I took a college course on frickin' water. It was a business course, but we talked about the differences between natural spring water and desalinated water and purified water. And if you ever look at the bottled water you buy, it's against the law in the, I don't know, it's like some international water governing body, but basically they can't bottle spring water and call it natural spring water if it's not bottled close enough to the source. So that means there's a lot of places on planet Earth that don't have bottled spring water simply because it's not economical to truck a bunch of bottles of water somewhere. So a lot of places you go in, not just the third world, but just in the water deserts, there are places you go where you look at the bottled water and it is the ingredients, it'll say it's desalinated or it's purified some other way, like through reverse osmosis. But I have been places with desalinated water where you're drinking the water and you're just not getting hydrated. Like my pee's still yellow. And I'm like, why do I feel like this when I'm drinking this purified water? Well, it's because when you desalinate water, there's nothing in it. None of the good stuff is in it either. So it's not like the water's poison. It's just not good for you. So I always take some of these liquid IVs and elements and those kind of guys with me, because you can add that to desalinated or some kind of reverse osmosis filtered water and actually make it good so your body can absorb it. So think about that if you're ever going somewhere where you can't get spring water, where you can't get natural water and you're drinking desalinated water, having a couple of those is priceless. So
you're talking about just electrolyte balance, right?
Right, exactly. Just the electrolytes and the way your body absorbs water when there is potassium, magnesium, and sodium in it versus when there's not. So that's exactly right. We all remember that in biology class, like 10th grade, the sodium potassium pump or something. Like there's the way the cell absorbs water when it does have the proper amount of electrolytes is super important. So
hey,
that's an easy one.
Brondo. It's what plants crave.
It's what plants crave. Oh, that's exactly right. Oh, we need to make sure we're throwing the movie references in there. It is what plants crave. So now the more exciting stuff. Let's pretend you're James Bond. It's some of the more exciting stuff that is in the travel loadout. There are some weapons. I'm going to use quotation figures, say weapons, and also going to say that maybe I've never done this, and we're definitely not attorneys. But TSA just came out and said recently outlawed these things. It's called like a cat eye keychain. I don't know if you've seen these, Chris. It's basically it's kind of like a take on brass knuckles, but it looks like a cat face and the little ears are little pokey things.
The patty cats, yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. So the TSA recently came out and said you can't take these anymore. And it's, you kind of put it in your knuckles like a brass knuckle and these little pointy spikes are the cat's ears, and you could use them as a weapon. And people were getting those by on keychains for a long time. And TSA said no. Now I have a product called, if you Googled CIA ice scraper, and we can put a link, but basically it's on metal. It's a hard polycarbonate, a very dense polycarbonate that kind of looks like a brass knuckle type thing where you put your fingers through it, but it has an ice scraper edge, like a pretty sharp edge for plastic on the end. And you can mess something up with that. It truly is basically a blade in your hand. I carry one of those. It's been everywhere on planet Earth. It's never even gotten a funny look anywhere in the world. I also carry a tactical pen, and I think the rule on pens is if it's 7 inches or less and it's a tool, then they're never going to stop you. But yeah, I carry a tactical pen everywhere I go in the world, and I've never been stopped with that, like a titanium pen with a decent point on it.
We have been stopped with a tactical pen. My wife actually carried one in her purse for a very long time, and we've probably flown back and forth to Mexico 10 times or something like that. At least flying 10 times. And she always kept it in her purse because she has something to write in or write with and something to write on. But she had a tactical pen that was made by Uzi. It had a glass breaker. It had a handcuff key.
I know that pen. I have that pen. Yeah, I think that isn't that kind of a longer pen too, though, because it has the handcuff key in the back?
So it was capped, though, so I don't know how long it was.
Okay.
Maybe that's why it was taken. But just remember, TSA agents are people, too. So I don't know if it's because it should have been confiscated a long time ago, or if it's because that particular agent in Mexico just thought it was a really cool pen and wanted to keep it. We'd flown back and forth with it, 10 times, and all of a sudden it's not allowed anymore. You can't take that.
Sure. So maybe that is, yeah, you're right. Maybe that was a TSA agent had his eye on it, and maybe it was sort of a gray area, because I think I know that pen is a little longer, but I've been pretty lucky with the tactical pens. I haven't had one pulled or stopped yet, and I have a very nice like titanium one that is a custom pen that was very expensive. So yeah, I've been lucky enough. Hopefully I doesn't get taken. The other thing I mentioned earlier, Shomer Tech makes these. It's a razor blade. It truly is a blade, but it's ceramic, and it is sharp as shit. But it's a ceramic blade. So if you bent it, it would break. But as far as the blade strength, you could easily cut like zip ties or something like that. And if you just need a blade for cutting a banana or something, it's the Shomer Tech. They do a really good job, and that's another thing I would put maybe in the weapon category. One other thing, I have a wrist strap. No, not wrist strap. It's a bracelet. It's a stupid bracelet, but it sits under my watch. It's if you Google GTFO wrist strap, it's kind of cool. It has a handcuff key like on the little stretchy piece of nylon or whatever that makes it, and it's kind of an advanced handcuff key, they call it, where it's designed to open handcuffs with like alternative security features such as key blocking blades or large key pinholes. So it's kind of a better handcuff key. And then the other side of this thing that's kind of cool is it's made out of like a flexible, like slingshotty type material. It's a little band, like a stretchy rubber band, and it's got a little tungsten bead on it, and tiny little bead, but very dense tungsten. And you can use this thing almost, think about like a slingshot, like right up to a car window. You can break glass with this little thing. So you take it and just stretch it out and let it go. And it's this very dense little tungsten bead. So you could break a car window in an emergency too. So I do like that. It's a very cool product. I think they're $20 or something. They're not very expensive. So along the tool thing, they say TSA, it's a tool shorter than 7 inches without a blade, you should be able to carry. So I don't really carry a multi-tool, but there are a bunch out there that are TSA approved. There's one called the Gerber Dime, and I think there's 2 Gerber Dimes. One of them is TSA approved. It's the same exact multi-tool, but without a blade. So if you're a Leatherman guy and you just want to carry one, the Gerber Dime is a great multi-tool, but it doesn't have a blade, so it's a TSA approved one. Okay. I also carry a flashlight, like just a separate flashlight. There's a couple of companies. One's Nebo, Nebo, that's an Amazon brand, and the other one I think is Folomov, Folomov. But both of them, they're tiny, like so tiny, like half the size of a chapstick, but they get up to like 1,000 lumens, so way better than your cell phone light. And they've got a little clip so you could put it on your hat if you want to. They've got 5 light modes, so they're, you can dim them down. They've got like a strobe and an SOS mode. So if you were lost somewhere, you could just turn the SOS mode on, leave it, and that thing will go for however many hours. Just a flash of SOS, right? Short, 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 long, 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 short, short, short. Like it would just go. Gotcha. And then they have a little magnetic clip on the back. And one of them, the Folomov one, I like because it's got like a little, you push the power button and kind of a code, like I think you push it 3 times really fast and it locks the light. So you can't accidentally turn it on in your pocket. So I like that. That's kind of the loadout. Now, if you want to go a little further, there's a company I really like, and Chris, I think you know these guys, called Grim Workshop, and they're made in the USA. They make these, they call them survival cards, but basically like the size of a credit card, and they're little metal tools on like a sticky back, and they're like laser etched, so they have a plane, they're like a 3D tool, like there's blades and stuff, all kinds of stuff, from like bushcrafty tools, fish hooks, lures, all kinds of really cool stuff. They have one I like that's like a fire pick, like a bypass tool, if you're familiar. So you can you know what I'm saying, like security doors, but you can put them through a security, any door, like an industrial door where you push a bar to open them. That little latch in there can be undone from the other side with one of these bypass tools. Firemen use them all the time. They call them fire picks, but these guys, Grim makes one that's small enough that it's the size of a credit card, but all kinds of really cool stuff. So if you're like, I want a tool that I can travel with because I like some certain thing, whether it's I want to have fishing hooks with me, or I want a bushcrafty tool or whatever, check these guys out. Now, I did send them an email about TSA, and I said, hey, can you get this stuff through TSA? Have you guys been successful? What's your stance on it? And he wrote me back. So I'm just going to read the email real quick that they wrote back.
For sure.
he says, hey, see, great question, and something we don't usually address because things can get a little gray in this area. They are very small blades, but we've always been told anything that is sharp and could be used as a weapon could be confiscated. A lot of it is at the TSA agent's discretion as to what qualifies. With that said, I've seen a ton of people flying with our products. Zach Fowler likes to push things and see how much he can actually get by with. My official recommendation would be don't bring anything that could be construed as a weapon, even a small blade. You could always remove the blade part and you'd still have a lot of other options. That's one of the handy things about our tools. You could just bring it, and if the agent has an issue with it, you just remove the offending item from the card, toss that portion, and you could always bring all the other items with you that aren't misconstrued as weapons. They say our dog tag tools, and these are really kind of cool. It's the size of a dog tag. It goes in a little dog tag silencer, but all kinds of micro tools. They said that these usually get right through. TSA agents are pretty familiar with the wallet style tools though, and I've heard they can be pretty picky with that stuff. So and he says, I hope this helps sign Jordan. So there's if you check out Grim Workshop, I think the website's grimsurvival.com, but they have just a ton of tools, and a lot of that stuff will get by TSA if there's something. Lastly, we discussed this in episode 2. I now carry a P-38 World War II can opener on my key ring because I did test it. It plows right through. Nope, no issue at all. One other thing you can take, believe it or not, and I found this out last week when we recorded episode 4, is you can take a big giant studio microphone in a carry-on bag right through TSA. So I did find that out. I put that thing in a box and I made sure I gave myself enough time at the airport. It's like, God, this is an expensive mic, Chris, you have the same mic and it's heavy and it's big. And I go, I don't know if this is going to go. And as it went through the TSA agent, I could see him. He stopped on my bag and he stared at it for a little bit, and then he looked at me and he goes, check. And I was like, yes, sir.
He knew what was up.
He knew it. Yeah,
at this
he's
point.
like, you are obviously a famous podcaster. So now one thing I like to do, and we do this a lot, this is kind of the Mythbusters model, right, is that we go past the practical and talk about some of the more obscure things you could do. So a couple things I would mention that you can take that I don't take every time, but like a Jace case or meds, like any of the antibiotics that out there that you can go and get without a real prescription. When you travel a lot of places in the world, it can be very handy to have something like that. A lot of people do get travel tummy, so an anti-nausea med or anti-diarrheal. There's a lot of weird travel stories about food. I used to be a very picky eater until I went to Asia, and now I don't care if it's alive, and as long as it can't fight me, I'll probably eat it. But you can get, there's weird stuff you have to eat sometimes. One of the other things is there's a company that makes aviation smoke hoods. They call them, I think, a fire hood mask or something. They're for like private pilots. So I have one in my airplane that I keep, but you could take these with you. They're very small. It's not that big, maybe the size of a can of soda. And you basically deploy this sort of plastic hood over you, and it's got a little rebreather smoke vent. Like we talked about, most of the survivable air crashes happen. People die because of smoke inhalation. So that's another option. I don't know.
That falls right into your +3 -8 rule.
That's right. That's the only time you need that thing. So, yeah. What about you? I mean, besides the tactical pen, Chris, there's probably other stuff that I'm not thinking of.
Well, my wife and I, anytime we travel, especially in airlines, we go through with a reusable water bottle. So one of the little plastic BPA-free screw-on cap water bottles. Both of us have one. We go through security with it empty and then refill it without having to pay $9 for a bottle of water at the airport.
Yep.
As long as it's empty, TSA doesn't care.
Yep.
Another thing that, just kind of a pro tip, if you are traveling to someplace that pocket knives are legal, you can check it into your luggage. I know we didn't go over checked luggage a lot, but you can check your pocket knife and kind of put it in an area where it would be easy to access as soon as you pick up your bag from the the baggage check, or the baggage claim, I should say, where you kind of unzip, you reach in, grab it, and now you know you are secure. You know exactly where that knife is, and it's part of your EDC.
Absolutely. I do that every time I travel. If I'm checking a bag, pocket knife right where I know it is, open that thing up before I even leave security, just pop it in my pocket and no one notices.
And same thing, if you are traveling in the US, I won't say this is true for international travel because US is very different on how these laws apply. But if you are traveling to a place where firearms are legal and a firearm is part of your EDC, checking a firearm into your checked luggage is an absolutely phenomenal way to almost guarantee that your luggage will not be lost. Because if the airline or the TSA loses that firearm, the fines associated with that are astronomical, and it's a big problem. So if you check a firearm, they are going to make sure you get your bag.
And it's not that painful of a process. I've done that. I'm sure you've done it. It's not that tough. They look at it, they make sure it's not loaded. They make sure there's no ammunition in it, and then they slap their tag on it, and that's it, right?
Yeah, and it's a little bit more because you've got to have a certified case. It's got to be a hard case. You have to have a certified lock, which is different than your just normal luggage lock. So it doesn't have to be a hardened lock. But the TSA doesn't always have keys to those locks. They do to just about every other luggage lock there is. But on a firearm, no. And that's just make sure that you're checking the laws before you fly, and really check the travel advisories. If you're going somewhere, check with the State Department, look at travel.gov, look at what's going on. Don't get yourself in a hotbed. There are some other things that you can do if you have to travel to an unfriendly place, like extrication insurance. That can be expensive. I know there are a few companies out there that do it. There's a couple that are owned and operated by retired special operators, and basically they'll give you a PLB and say, if you pull this pin, we're going to come get you. You're not necessarily going to like how we get you out of the country, but you're going home. And I mean, sometimes you can even pay for a bodyguard to join you. I think my wife and I looked at that one time for a vacation, and for the 2 weeks that we were going to be gone, it was going to be $6,000 or something like that. So it's not cheap. You can get extrication insurance. You can get a bodyguard if it's within your budget, but being prepared on your own is going to save you a lot of money, at least.
Right. I'd say too, along those lines, there's a couple of things. Registering with the State Department. If you are traveling internationally, a lot of people don't know this, but you can register with the embassy in country, with the embassy or consulate. I do this all the time. If I'm going somewhere unfriendly or maybe unfriendly, I always register with the local, the agency, the U.S. embassy or the U.S. consulate, and they will keep you abreast if anything breaks out. And this actually happened to me once. I was in Colombia, and I had registered with the embassy, and I got a text, and it was State Department. And basically what had happened was they had riots. Like, I don't even know what was going on, but they had riots. They're like, avoid this part of Bogota because there are riots going on right now. And that was useful information, because I was going to the airport that day. I was taking a taxi, and it was great to be like, okay, yeah, don't go this way to the airport. So if you register with the U.S. embassy in whatever country you're going to, they will give you travel alerts. And if something really bad happens, they know you're there. They know a U.S. citizen is there in country, and you tell them basically what hotel you're staying at. And I'm not saying they'll come get you, but they will at least give you advice, and they will communicate with you, and they'll know you're there. And then if you can make it to the U.S. embassy, then yeah, they can help get you out. One of the other, I just thought about this. One of the other kind of funny travel hack things I do, if I'm going somewhere that is unfriendly to Americans, I have a little hook and loop patch, like a backpack patch, or I can put it on my hat, but I carry a little Velcro patch that's a Canadian flag, because no one hates the Canadians, man. Like, you don't, what are you going to kidnap a Canadian for? Like, I don't know, free healthcare or something? Like, no, they're not like, yeah. So it's very gray, man, but it is. I will slap that on my bag if I'm going somewhere that's less friendly to Americans. I'll slap a Canadian flag on my bag and travel Canadian. And yeah, I don't know. They just don't hate those people for some reason.
Who can really?
You can't really. I mean, it's like, like waffles and gravy and stuff and beaver tails. I mean, no, you can't. So
I will say one thing that we always do, and this is probably the most important thing that we do anytime we travel, whether it's road, airline, taking a cruise, taking a train trip, always leave contingency contact information, your approximate location, your approximate time of return, flight numbers, train numbers, whatever it is, with a trusted person. Doesn't have to be your parents or your best friend or anybody like that, but a trusted person. And it's something that a lot of people don't do for whatever reason. I personally don't get it. But in the very unlikely event that your plane goes down or something goes wrong, at least they can notify your boss that you're not going to make it into work on Monday. And they may have that responsibility to be the notifying party to family or loved ones.
Sure.
It's kind of one of those critical things that people don't think about, but we always do. I will say the one thing that is now a part of my EDC, anytime we travel, regardless of where we're going, now that we have them coming, I'm going to be adding our stakeholder prepping stickers into my bag.
Good call. And then you can just like slap those on bumper stickers randomly in foreign countries, maybe. Maybe that's a way for us to get more listeners.
I might slap it on the side of a Boeing as I'm boarding it, just so that
I like
they
that.
know. But if they are not available by the time this episode airs, they should be coming out soon, so you can get them, spread the word. We do have them. They are our logo on a black background. They look really nice. They are solid stickers.
And we'll include those. I guess anybody that plays any of our fun games, like guessing the logo or guessing or throwing out the five items that are better than our 6 from episode 2. I guess we're also going to have to include the stakeholder prepping stickers as well for those people, huh?
Absolutely. And to date, again, these episodes are a little bit delayed on their release, but to date, no one has correctly guessed our logo. So send your guess to stakeholderprepping@gmail.com. Send us episode ideas. We do like them. They are getting added into the rotation. We do have to do some research on some of them. But the other big thing is we haven't had a lot of guesses or a lot of suggestions for the 5 items that are better than our 6. And it's a legit package. We've got a picture on our website, stakeholderprepping.com. Look at the episode 2 blog. We have pictures of all of the items that we will send you. If you feel like you are a field expert in something prepping related, send us an email. Let's see if we maybe bring you on as a guest, because this is a community effort.
That's right. I really do like that. And, looking at the stuff in that bag, man, I could imagine if you were stuck in, Hurricane Helene with maybe some extra candles and beans, that would be good. I mean, if I knew that kind of thing was coming, there's definitely a few things in this loadout that I would go stack up on in triplicate.
Absolutely. So I think that about wraps this one up, AC. What do you think?
I absolutely think so. Yeah, absolutely. Give them the outro.
All right. Perfect. Well, as always, remember, you are your own stakeholder in your survival.